Last year, you made a powerful statement saying the reason people are watching women's basketball is not just because of one player, but because of you too. A year later, do you feel like you're
Next question.
The reporter didn't have to complete his inquiry, but he didn't. In only 2 sentences, Angel Reed described the WNBA's current situation and its connection with Caitlin Clark. And things have recently changed significantly in that relationship. Allow me to clarify. There is no denying Caitlin Clark's influence on the WNBA. Record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and millions of new fans. However, the league's collective mishandling of this fantastic chance is also indisputable. Many in the league resisted the Caitlin Clark impact rather than embracing it. They questioned the fanfare, minimized her influence, and, worst of all, made fun of her admirers. Instead of viewing the Caitlin Clark effect as a gift, they saw it as a threat. It also made little sense to anyone seeing from the outside.
Whatever you want to call Mamba mentality, whatever you define as Mamba mentality, there's no question about it that Caitlin Clark has it.
The popularity, the headlines, the excitement, the success, and the crowded venues. The WNBA had been dreaming about this for decades. At last, they had the player, the moment, the attention, and the cultural breakthrough. They are on the verge of real money, decent pay, and international recognition. The catch was that Caitlin Clark was at the forefront. Furthermore, this was hardly a celebration for a lot of WNBA players. It was a funeral, because Caitlin's romance wasn't merely a plot twist for some of them. It was a dream that had died. The hope that they would be the ones to improve the league as a whole. And perhaps the most difficult pill to swallow. The notion that the fans did show up despite being taught for years that they simply don't care about the women's game. For Caitlin, they just arrived.
Yeah, it is clear that she is having her freaking Michael Jordan moment right now.
There are, indeed, Diana.
Players and the media have gone through what appear to be phases of grief, denial, rage, and the like after a death. Just wait to see how everything comes together. It's crazy. In any case, it's been depressing, unsightly, and just not good for the WNBA. However, things have changed recently. An ordinary moment would not be noteworthy. Changed everything in the end. The WNBA is now fully aware of what lies ahead. Additionally, they are frantically trying to get on the correct side of history. Now, let's discuss what transpired. If you're prepared to watch the WNBA given to Caitlin, watch this video first. Remember to subscribe as well. Let's take a moment to go back.
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Half of the WNBA was already thinking about Caitlin Clark at this stage in the previous season. She was not a recent arrival. She exploded, sold out NBA stadiums, tripled viewership, and skyrocketed jersey sales. With fans waiting in line for hours and scalpers demanding playoff prices for regular season tickets, every Fever game become a must-see event.
The one thing that I cannot deny is the amount of little girls that were showing up to follow her. Little girls with their parents and the fervor and the energy there.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, but she was a white girl from the middle of America.
Before Caitlin Clark ever put on a pair of professional sneakers, the jealousy began. There was nothing less of generational excitement surrounding her. She had recently surpassed both the men's and women's NCAA all-time scoring records. She led Iowa to consecutive national championship contests. Every arena she touched was sold out. Logo threes were dropped as if they were layups. The WNBA draft followed. Just a coronation, no tension, no surprises. She was undoubtedly the top choice. She was the moment, though, more than that. The sponsors lining up, the press coverage, the camera flashing. The league had already seen outstanding players, so that's when things became strange. MVPs, champs, Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, and Breanna Stewart are real stars. However, none of them arrived with this level of anticipation. And that hurt some people. Let the initial phase of grieving begin. Denial. It was more than skepticism. It was outright opposition. Executives, players, the media, and the old guard all moved in to minimize the situation right away. Even before she took the court, you could see the fissures.
But the WNBA last year, bless their hearts, finally got a star. and they didn't know that. They couldn't figure it out. Well, we don't want to put too much Caitlin Clark on. Nope, every game. More Caitlin Clark all the time, always. Caitlin Clark is easily the most influential athlete in a team sport since Michael Jordan.
The old guard would have had their "I told you so" moment if Caitlin had simply entered the room and failed, even if she had been mediocre. The story would have written itself. College is college. The WNBA, meanwhile, is an entirely different animal. You don't just walk in and take control of the ladies who founded this league. The excitement would have subsided. The focus of the media would have changed. And the old guard was justified. However, it was not the case. With 2.1 million viewers, her debut game was the most watched WNBA match in more than 20 years. The ratings skyrocketed each time she performed. Sellout crowds, national broadcasts, and jerseys flying off the shelves. She was taking ownership of the occasion rather than merely meeting it. That's when we noticed it. Anger is the second stage.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
The next stage was damage management, as it was obvious that Caitlin's appeal would not diminish despite the numerous eye rolls and media criticism she received. On the court, not off it. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, the league began to push back between the lines. Players were dishonest. Off-ball hits, hard screens, and needless contact. What actions did the referees take? Whistles were pocketed. It developed into a pattern. Allow her to be struck. Allow her to become irritated. Allow her to reconsider whether or not she belonged. They attempt to physically put an end to the excitement if it doesn't go away on its own. Game after game, you could see it. She became weary of it. She was mentally spent, battered, and worn out. However, Caitlin overcame it. She refrained from crying. She refused to fold. After the Olympic break, she returned with the best basketball of her life, having literally grown stronger. We are discussing MVP-level content. Making the first team All-Star, shattering the assist record, and leading the Fever to victories. All of it. We moved on to stage 3, bargaining, once she demonstrated that the hype was genuine. People attempt to make sense of the new world at this point. They try to explain everything in a way that allows them to cling to what they lost, and they bargain with others and with themselves. Control, pride, and status. Since many athletes lost their ego, let's face it, after Caitlin entered the league and quickly gained popularity, the veterans were no longer in the spotlight. It was her fault. What then did they do? They altered the narrative.
Now, if we say her stats are today, what?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But 5 points.
They were aware that pursuing Caitlin head-on would backfire. Rather, they attacked anything in her immediate vicinity. The fans were attacked. The media was held accountable. They said Caitlin wasn't the issue. Everybody else was. She was being treated with privilege. Her supporters weren't actual WNBA fans. The story. Caitlin Clark's skin tone must be the reason you liked her. Ignore the fact that, as a rookie, she led the league in assists. Ignore the fact that she was attracting unprecedented numbers of spectators and increasing the number of people watching the game. No, not at all. All of that was irrelevant because her excellence was not the subject of the narrative. It had to do with bias.
Caitlin's coming. There's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
It's the traditional propaganda manual. If you tell the lie enough times and loudly enough, people will ultimately stop challenging it. Furthermore, some members of the basketball community now really think Caitlin Clark lacks talent. She's simply fortunate. However, they were mistaken if they thought that this story would cause the Caitlin Clark effect to subside. Veterans began signing up one by one to play with the Indiana Fever. These guys weren't only content to be on a roster or in need of a job. These were seasoned winners. The desire to perform in Indy was shared by Dana Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sydney Carlson, women with alternatives, and women with rings. Caitlin Clark is the reason, not just the roster or the coach. Not too long ago, media personalities like Cheryl Swoops portrayed Indiana as a destination that no one wanted to visit. Even Diana Taurasi recently brought up the previous suspicions, but that storyline fell apart. Indy is the destination, not only a place to visit. The floodgates opened as a result.
While Caitlin is fantastic and I think she's going to have an incredible career in the WNBA, there are women that were worthy of coverage prior to her arriving, and I just will not be silenced when it comes to that.
The improvements to the arena came first. They were moving games specifically for her. Not for all stars, not for playoff ramifications, not for league mockery, but for Caitlin Clark. NBA arenas were suddenly being reserved by teams that usually played in smaller gyms because they had to.
It was an obligatory demand.
You needed additional seats if Caitlin was visiting. The broadcast schedule followed. 41 of the Indiana Fever's 44 regular season games will be broadcast nationally. That's saturation, not simply visibility. There was no hedging of bets by the networks. They were placing all of their bets on a single player, believing that Caitlin Clark's show was worthy of prime time, airing practically every night. The preseason games followed. And venue with 15,000 seats was sold out for one of them, an exhibition game.
Preseason is that.
Just Caitlin, no standings, no playoff stakes. Additionally, admirers paid hundreds of dollars to watch her warm up.
And the average reported ticket price was $650. Now, if you do the math here and you do 15,000 people times $650, that is almost $9.75 million just for a WNBA preseason game.
It was impossible to ignore the Caitlin Clark impact at that time. There was no hype. It wasn't spin from marketing. It was advanced money, momentum, and math. Many gamers saw reality in a different way. They weren't being built around by their own teams. They relied on Caitlin. The Fever's arrival was linked to promotions. Only when she was in town did ticket sales increase. The media outlets were aware of it. The sponsors were aware of it. The supporters were undoubtedly aware of it. And somewhere in the middle of the marketing frenzy, the sold-out venues, and the change in league spirit, something began to take hold. Acceptance. The participants then began to converse.
The plays that she was making still, despite all that, was like insane. But like people were so caught up in the logo threes and the 23-point attempts per game, which absolutely I understand that. Like it was so much fun to watch. But I always said she could potentially be one of the best point guards to ever play in the WNBA.
Has the coverage been flawless? Not, of course. There are still many voices that are more willing to criticize than to appreciate, as well as snubs and double standards. But the tone has changed gradually and clearly. The same media outlets that used to scrutinize her every action are now focusing on her effect, leadership, and work ethic. Some of the players who previously appeared doubtful are now beginning to give credit. True credit. She's not just talented, but she's also revolutionizing the game. And that gets us to the pivotal moment, Caitlin Clark's return home.
The fans filed outside in droves, getting ready at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and watch parties all around Iowa City. Everybody wants to catch a glimpse of Iowa's favorite daughter, Caitlin Clark, returning home.
That exhibition game was televised by over 1.3 million people. And the turnout wasn't the only factor. The sold-out arena wasn't the only thing. It was the comparison and the context. Not only did that figure dominate the WNBA preseason, games from other professional leagues were withdrawn. However, it wasn't limited to viewers at home. Caitlin did it while aware that they were observing. In the spotlight, she didn't back down. She took advantage of it. She was fully aware of what the crowd had come to witness.
And for the first time in history, WNBA games will be played in the United Center. The Chicago Sky will host the Indiana Fever at the UC on Saturday, June 7th, and on Sunday, July 27th.
With everyone watching, Caitlin smashed the NCAA scoring record by running up the floor and making a three-pointer from behind.
It was more than a shot.
It was a declaration. And the supporters went completely crazy. Because basketball was no longer the only thing at stake. This had to do with amusement. It was narrative. Theater, a perfectly timed full-circle moment. Caitlin was aware of her location, the significance of the occasion, and how to convey it. The crowd would always remember it.
Possessions of the day for Brazil. Here's Clark. Wow! You bet! From
Even the Brazilian national squad was unable to resist giving fans what they wanted. They did more than simply shake hands and leave the court following the exhibition game. They surrounded Caitlin, grinning, giggling, and taking photographs as if they had just met Michael Jordan, because it was precisely who she was in their views.
It is a balance, but she's a generational talent. No league's ever about one player, but in this case, Caitlin brought tens of millions of new viewers into the W, and there's no denying that impact. Not just in the WNBA, but the world of sports. Adam and I talk all the time about she's the most popular athlete in America, you know.
This was the time. The opponents rushing her for autographs after the final buzzer, the sold-out audience, and the 1.3 million viewers. In our age of sound bites and snapshots, perception frequently outweighs evidence. The picture now reflected reality. The numbers were already known to all. Everyone noticed the media hoopla, the merchandise sales, the arena improvements, and the broadcast schedule. However, this was not like the others. The illusion broke at this point. The delusion that anyone else was involved.
Like this season, people are trying to get on the right side of history after kind of being weird the first year. So I can see like the narrative is already kind of, they're waiting for her to produce so that they can say like they were right.
The game changed as a result. Players, the media, and commentators are all suddenly much more supportive of Caitlin Clark than they were a few weeks ago. Why? It was no longer debatable because of what transpired throughout the preseason, the sellouts, the ratings, and the seriousness she brought to every building. When everything makes sense, start the offs. Caitlin Clark wasn't merely enjoying her celebrity. She was working harder than anyone. Caitlin was rushing between high-profile events, speaking engagements, NFL owner meetings, the Masters, and still making it to the gym by 8 a.m. the next day, while most players were settling into the off-season. Each time. No justifications, no absences, and no burnout. That goes beyond discipline. That is legendary conduct right out of the playbook of Kobe Bryant. Caitlin Clark is more powerful, larger, and ready to rule. Her physique is designed for the professional grind. Her decision-making skills have improved, and her self-assurance in the spotlight has only increased. She is no longer merely getting used to the WNBA. She's getting ready to take control. While some of the haters actively work to advance the narrative by praising Caitlin, others choose to remain silent in order to acknowledge the truth. Next query. The sorrow of not being the main attraction. This truly boils down to that. Additionally, each player experiences it in a distinct way. While some express dissatisfaction, others remain silent. Some have embraced it from the beginning, such as Sophie Cunningham. However it may appear, the time has come. There is evidence everywhere. The scope is staggering. There was more to that preseason contest in Iowa than just anticipation. It was the Caitlin Clark effect coming back to life. And it will be larger than before this time. If you made it all the way, please leave a trophy in the comments. I appreciate you watching.